That morning, lying inside a light wooden casket, a rosary between my hands, and the smell of candle wax filling my lungs, I understood that sometimes you have to fake your own death to find out who truly loves you. My name is Patricia Green. I am 65 years old, and this is the most painful and liberating story I have ever lived. It all began 3 months ago, when my daughter, Megan, started acting strangely. She came to my house less often. Her hugs were cold, her calls brief, and when I looked her in the eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. A rush, as if my presence was a clock ticking too slowly. I lived alone in the family home in Charleston, that house with the terracotta-coloured walls where I raised Megan after her father died when she was 8 years old. I worked as an elementary school teacher for 37 years to give her everything. Private college, trips, a wedding, everything. Megan married Ryan 4 years ago, an accountant with a calculating gaze and a measured smile. Since then, something changed. First, it was the questions about my property, then the suggestions that I should sell the house and move to a smaller, more comfortable place. Afterward, the conversations that stopped abruptly when I walked into the living room. One afternoon in September, while having coffee in my kitchen, I accidentally overheard a phone call Megan was having from the backyard. She was talking to Ryan. "Mom is in good health, Ryan. She could live another 20 years. We can't wait that long." My heart stopped. "Calm down," I heard Ryan's voice over the speakerphone. "We'll find a way." They hung up. Megan walked into the kitchen with a smile and said to me, "Is everything okay, Mum? You look pale." I didn't say anything, but that night, looking at the pearl rosary my mother gave me before she died, I made a decision. I was going to find out the truth, and for that, I would have to die. Sometimes we trust too much in the wrong people. Have you ever been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read them. There is a photograph on my nightstand that I look at every night before I go to sleep. In it, Megan is 7 years old and wearing the pigtails I used to do for her every morning before school. She's hugging me in the yard of this very house, and we are both laughing with that pure laughter that only exists when love is unconditional. Those years were difficult, but they were also the most beautiful of my life. After Edward, my husband, died in that car accident on the highway near Atlanta, I was left alone with a young child, a mortgaged house, and a teacher's salary that barely covered the bills. But Megan never lacked anything. Never. I remember the mornings in this kitchen, the smell of drip coffee, mixed with the sound of her laughter as she told me her dreams. I would prepare her lunch while she coloured at the table. She would tell me, "Mummy, when I grow up, I'm going to take care of you the way you take care of me." On Sundays, we would go to the farmer's market in Charleston. We would buy fresh flowers, Danish pastries, and that Monterey Jack cheese we both loved so much. Megan would carry the small bag, and I would carry the large one. We would walk hand in hand. When she turned 15, I gave her the party she always dreamed of. I went into debt for 6 months, but it was worth every dollar when I saw her face lit up in that pink dress she chose herself. We danced the father-daughter dance, and she whispered in my ear, "Thank you for being the best mum in the world." At what point did I lose that child? At what point did the hugs become an obligation and the visits a chore? Ryan came into her life 5 years ago. At first, he seemed like a good man, educated, hard-working, with plans. But little by little, I noticed how he was pulling her away from me. Family dinners cancelled, Christmases at Ryan's parents' house, calls getting shorter and shorter. And then the questions about money began. "Mum, have you made your will yet? Mum, how much is this house worth? Mum, do you have any life insurance?" I answered them with a tight heart, thinking it was normal for a daughter to worry about her mother's future. But that afternoon, when I overheard that phone conversation in my backyard, I understood that it wasn't concern. It was impatience. That night I held my mother's pearl rosary between my fingers and cried like I hadn't cried since Edward's funeral. My mother gave it to me 3 days before she died. She told me, "Patricia, this rosary has passed through 4 generations of strong women. When you hold it, remember who you are." And I remembered. I remembered that I survived the loss of my husband. I remembered that I raised my daughter alone. I remembered that I paid off this house with my honest work. And I decided that I was not going to allow anyone, not even my own daughter, to treat me like a burden. The next day, I called Dr. Robert Miller, my lifelong friend, and proposed something that he, at first, thought was insane. Dr. Miller looked at me over his glasses, as if I had just told him I wanted to fly to the moon. "Patricia, are you sure about what you're asking me?" We were sitting in his office, the place where he had treated me for 20 years. From the flu to the scare of that biopsy that, thank God, turned out to be benign. He knew my whole story. He knew the sacrifice I made for Megan. "I need to know the truth, Rob," I told him. "I need to see who my daughter really is when she thinks I'm gone." I told him everything. The conversation I overheard, the increasingly cold visits, the questions about property and wills, the change in her look. Rob sighed deeply. "Give me 2 weeks to prepare everything," he finally said. "But this is dangerous, Patricia. Not just emotionally. If anything goes wrong—" "Nothing will go wrong," I interrupted. "I just want the truth. And after that, I'll know what to do." During those 2 weeks, I watched Megan with different eyes. She came to visit me one Wednesday afternoon. She was wearing that expensive perfume Ryan gave her for her birthday. She sat in the living room. She drank coffee. But her eyes scanned the house as if she were taking inventory. "Mom, haven't you thought about selling some furniture? This house is too big for you alone." "I like my house the way it is," I replied, watching her. "It's just, at your age, Mum, so much space, so many stairs." Her voice sounded concerned, but her eyes were cold. "I am 65 years old, Megan, not 85. I know, Mum. I'm just worried about you." But when she left, I noticed she had taken a photograph from the mantel, a picture of the house from the yard. She put it in her bag, thinking I hadn't seen her. The following Saturday, Ryan came with her. It was the first time in months that he had set foot in my house. "Mrs. Green," he greeted me with that professional smile. "It's great to see you." They sat together on the sofa. Megan served the coffee. And then Ryan began. "Mrs. Green, Megan and I have been thinking. You live alone in this big house. We live in a small apartment. Wouldn't you like us to come live with you? That way we could take better care of you." My heart skipped a beat. "Take care of me?" I asked. "I don't need to be taken care of. I'm perfectly fine." Of course," Ryan continued. "But think about it. We would pay the expenses. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. And if someday, God forbid, something happened to you, we would already be here to help you." Megan nodded enthusiastically. "It's the best, Mum. We'll be closer that way." I looked at both of them, and at that moment, I knew that Dr. Miller's plan was necessary. "I'll think about it," I lied. When they left, I held the pearl rosary and prayed, not for me, but for my daughter, for the child I hugged in that photograph, and whom I no longer recognized in the woman who had just walked out my door. A week later, Dr. Miller called me. "Everything is ready, Patricia. Are you still sure?" "More than ever," I replied. "Then this Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning." Come to my office. I'll give you a sedative that will make you sleep deeply for approximately 6 hours. Your heart rate and breathing will be reduced to a minimum. You will appear to be dead. I will have everything prepared to issue a temporary death certificate. The funeral will be that same day in the afternoon. And will you be there? I asked. I will be at the funeral home, monitoring everything from an adjacent room. When you wake up, I'll help you get out. But Patricia, if you change your mind, I won't change my mind, Rob. On Thursday night, I cleaned my house, watered my plants, prepared drip coffee for the last time in that kitchen that had witnessed so many happy mornings. I put on my navy blue dress, the one Megan gave me 2 years ago. I wanted to look dignified. I wanted, if it was my last image, for it to be beautiful. I held the pearl rosary all night, and at dawn on Friday, with my heart beating fast but my mind clear, I left my house for Dr. Miller's office. As I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. The last thing I remember before closing my eyes was Dr. Miller's soft voice. Rest, Patricia. I'll take care of you. The injection was warm. I felt it expand through my arm, then my chest, and finally everything went dark. I don't know how much time passed. I didn't dream. I didn't feel. There was only a deep, silent void, like floating in warm water without weight or time. When I began to regain consciousness, the first thing I perceived was the smell. Candle wax, white flowers, that heavy, sweet aroma that only exists in funeral homes. Then the voices, distant at first, as if coming from the bottom of a well. Little by little they became clearer. She looks so peaceful, I heard the voice of my neighbour, Mrs. Eleanor. Poor Patricia, still so young. It was very sudden, Megan's voice, broken. A sudden heart attack. She didn't suffer. I wanted to open my eyes. I wanted to scream. I'm here. I'm alive. But my body wouldn't respond. The sedative was still running through my veins. I felt the brush of a hand over mine. Cold fingers that touched the pearl rosary I was holding in my hands, crossed over my chest. It's Grandma's rosary, Megan murmured. I guess it's mine now. Something inside me broke with those words, but I remained motionless, waiting. Dr. Miller had been very clear. The effect of the sedative would last approximately 6 hours. During that time, I would be in an almost catatonic state. I would be able to hear, but I would not be able to move or speak. My breathing would be so shallow it would appear non-existent. My pulse, almost imperceptible. It's like a temporary death, he had explained to me. But it's dangerous, Patricia. Your body will be completely vulnerable. I know, I had replied, but I need this. And now, lying in that light wooden casket lined with white satin, with the weight of the rosary between my fingers and the scent of lilies filling my motionless lungs, I understood that there are sacrifices that only a mother's love is willing to make, even when that love is unreturned. The voices continued. People coming and going, acquaintances, neighbours, former colleagues from the school where I worked. I heard their condolences, their prayers, their memories of me. She was such a good teacher, said Mrs. Chapman, who was my school principal. The children adored her. She was always so generous, added another voice I didn't recognize. She once lent me money when my son was sick. She never charged me back. Every word was like a caress on my motionless heart. But then I heard Ryan's voice, low, almost a whisper. Megan, come on. We need to talk. I felt them move away. Their footsteps echoed on the marble floor of the funeral home until they stopped somewhere not too far away. They spoke in low voices, but I could hear them. Did you talk to the notary yet? Ryan asked. Early tomorrow, Megan replied. I have an appointment at 9 o'clock. And the house? Everything is in my name. The will is clear. The property, the bank accounts, everything. How much is in the accounts? There was a pause. More than we thought. Mum was very frugal. Ryan let out a short laugh. Your mother was a little worker bee. She worked her whole life. It's only fair that we enjoy what she saved now. Ryan, don't talk like that. She just died. I know. Sorry, it's just that we've been waiting for this moment for years. Years cramped in that tiny apartment while your mother lived alone in that huge house. I know, Megan sighed, but I still feel weird. It's normal. Ryan's voice softened, manipulative. She's your mother. But think about our future, my love. Think about the life we can have now. We can sell that house and buy something better. We can travel. We can live without worries. You're right, Megan murmured. And then silence. I remained lying there, motionless, my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces inside a body that couldn't move. My daughter, my child, the one I hugged, the one I raised, the one who swore to take care of me when she grew up. She was celebrating my death. I still wonder if a mother can really prepare to hear something like that. And you? What would you have done in my place? Time inside a coffin moves differently. There are no clocks, no windows, only voices, footsteps, and the weight of the truth falling like stones onto your motionless chest. I don't know how many hours passed. Maybe 2, maybe 3. The sedative was slowly beginning to wear off. I could feel a faint tingling in my fingers, like invisible needles waking up my flesh. More people arrived. I heard my cousins from Boston, the teachers from the school, Father James from the parish. Everyone prayed. Everyone cried. Everyone said beautiful things about me. And every word of true love made the words I had heard from my own daughter more painful. Then came Grace, my dear friend, Megan's confirmation sponsor, the woman who had stood by me during the hardest times of my life. Megan, my child, I heard her say in a broken voice. I can't believe Patricia is gone. We were like sisters. I know, Grace, Megan replied. Her voice sounded tired. It was so sudden. And how are you feeling, dear? I know you and your mum. Grace paused. Well, I know you had some differences lately. My heart raced inside my motionless chest. Differences. Had Megan talked about me to others? It's complicated, Grace, Megan sighed. Mum had become very difficult, very controlling, always giving her opinion about my life, about my marriage. Sometimes I felt like I couldn't breathe. Me controlling. Me who gave her all the freedom in the world. Me who accepted every one of her decisions without judgment. Controlling? Grace asked, surprised. Patricia was always so. You didn't live with her, Grace, Megan interrupted. You didn't see what she was like at home, always with her comments, her questions. Ryan and I couldn't do anything without her having an opinion. Lies. All lies. I barely saw them once a month. I understand, dear, Grace said, though her voice sounded doubtful. But now you need to rest. Your mum is finally at peace. Yes, Megan murmured. Finally at peace. Those words, finally at peace, as if my life had been a burden that was finally lifted. Grace approached my casket. I felt her hand on my forehead, soft and warm. Rest in peace, dear friend, she whispered. You were the best friend anyone could have, and the best mother, no matter what they say. I wanted to cry, but the tears couldn't escape my closed eyes. Afterward, Grace left, and the funeral home grew quieter. It was mid-afternoon. The wake would continue until 6 o'clock, I heard someone mention, and then would come the mass at the church. It was then that I heard approaching footsteps. Two people. Two. Megan and a woman's voice that I recognized immediately. Denise, Ryan's sister. "Is everyone gone yet?" Denise asked. "Almost everyone," Megan replied. "It's a good time to talk." "Did you talk to your mum's lawyer?" "Yes, this morning, before coming. Everything is in order. The will is in my name. The house, the accounts, everything." "And how much is everything?" Megan lowered her voice. "The house is worth around $6 million. The bank accounts have another $1.5 million. And there are some investment bonds my mum had for years. In total, we're talking about almost $8 million. Denise gave a low whistle. Ryan was right. Your mum was rich. "She wasn't rich," Megan defended. "Just frugal." "Whatever. The point is that you now have $8 million. When are you going to sell the house?" "I don't know. Soon. Maybe in a month." "And are you going to buy another one?" "Ryan wants to buy a new condo in Manhattan, one of those modern ones, with a gym and pool." "Sounds good. And what are you going to do with your mum's furniture? There are some antiques that are worth money." "I know. I already hired an appraiser. He's coming next week." Denise laughed. "Your very efficient sister-in-law." "It's just, I want to close this chapter quickly," Megan said. "This house has too many memories, and not all of them good." "I understand. Well, if you need help with anything, let me know. Ryan is my favorite brother, and if he's happy, I'm happy." "Thanks, Denise." They walked away. Their heels echoed on the marble until they disappeared. And I remained there, motionless, listening to my daughter parcel out the pieces of my life as if they were items in a second-hand store. The pearl rosary felt heavy in my hands. I could feel it more clearly now. The sedative was wearing off. Soon I could move. Soon I would have to decide what to do. But before that, I needed to hear one more thing. I needed to be completely sure. And that final confirmation came half an hour later, when the funeral home was empty for a moment. Only Megan and Ryan remained near my casket. "Do you think she suspected anything?" Ryan asked in a low voice. "Who? My mum?" Megan sounded confused. "Yes, before she died. Do you think she realized that we didn't want her around anymore?" There was a long silence, a silence that hurt more than any word. "I don't know," Megan finally replied. "But if she did, it doesn't matter now." It doesn't matter now. Those 3 words resonated inside my head like funeral bells. My life, my sacrifices, my unconditional love, they didn't matter anymore. The tingling in my fingers was getting stronger. I could feel the velvet lining of the casket under my hands. I could control my breathing, although I kept it slow and shallow. Dr. Miller had warned me. "When you start to wake up, stay calm. Don't move abruptly. Wait for the right moment." And what was the right moment to resurrect from the dead? I heard someone else enter the room. Heavy, masculine footsteps. "Everything is ready," an unknown voice said. "The hearse will arrive in 20 minutes to transfer the body to the church." "Thank you," Ryan replied. The body. That's what they called me now. I was no longer Patricia. I was not Mum. I was not the woman who had welcomed them into her house with hot coffee and sweet rolls. I was simply the body. "Where is your mum?" I heard the voice of an older woman. I recognized Aunt Rose, my late husband Edward's sister. "In the restroom, Aunt," Megan replied. "She'll be right back." "Poor Patricia, my dear. Aunt Rose said, and I felt her trembling hand touch my cheek. She was such a good person, so hard-working. When my Edward died, she was left alone with the child, and she never complained. She never asked for help. So proud, so strong. Yes, Aunt, Megan murmured with a flat voice. And you, my child, how will you be? I know you two had your differences lately, but a mother is always a mother. I'll be fine, Aunt. Don't worry. It's just that I was told you didn't talk much, that you barely came to visit her. It's just that I have my own life, Aunt. My husband, my house. Mum understood. She understood? Aunt Rose's voice broke. Oh, Megan, your mum never complained, but I saw her. I saw her at Mass every Sunday, alone in her pew. She always asked about you. She always said, Megan is very busy, but she's fine. But in her eyes there was a great sadness. There was an uncomfortable silence. Aunt, please, it's not the time. You're right, my child. Forgive me. It's just that your mum loved you so much. So much. I wish you knew. Aunt Rose's steps moved away slowly, and then I heard something that broke my heart. Megan sobbed, a short, muffled sob, as if she were trying to contain it. Are you okay? Ryan asked. Yes, it's just… Aunt Rose was always very dramatic. I know. Don't mind her. Your mum had a good life, and you were a good daughter. Do you think so? Of course. You gave her what you could. Nobody can ask for more. But I could hear the doubt in Megan's voice. That doubt that arrives when regret begins to peek through the cracks of denial. More people began to arrive for the transfer to the church. The funeral homeroom filled with voices, footsteps, prayers. I felt the casket being lifted. 4 men, probably. They moved me carefully, and I heard the squeaking of the metal base wheels on the marble floor. Fresh air hit my face when we went outside. It smelled like recent rain, wet earth. It was late. The November sun must have been setting already. They loaded me into the hearse. I heard the engine starting. The ride to St. Michael's Church, where I married Edward 42 years ago, would take about 15 minutes. During that journey, lying in the darkness of the hearse, I had time to think, to remember, to feel. I remembered Megan at 6 years old, crying because she fell off her bicycle. I cleaned her scraped knees, put band-aids with cartoon characters on them, and sang to her until she stopped crying. I remembered Megan at 12 years old, when the girls at her school teased her. I went to talk to the principal. I defended her. I taught her to be strong. I remembered Megan at 18 years old, when she didn't pass the entrance exam for the university she wanted. I paid for a private tutor. I stayed up late with her studying. I celebrated when she finally got in. I remembered Megan at 23 years old, on her graduation day. She hugged me, crying, and said, "None of this would have been possible without you, Mum. I love you." What happened to that child? To that young woman? At what moment did she turn into this woman who celebrated my death? The hearse stopped. We had arrived at the church. I heard the doors open. I felt the cold air of the afternoon. The church bells rang slowly, gravely, announcing a funeral. They took me out of the vehicle. The men carried my casket down the central aisle of the church. I recognized the echo of that sacred space, the wooden pews, the smell of incense, the sound of footsteps multiplying against the stone walls. They placed me in front of the altar. Father James began to speak. Brothers and sisters, we gather today to say goodbye to our dear sister, Patricia Green. His voice was soft, paternal. He spoke of my life, my work as a teacher, my dedication to the parish, my faith. Patricia was a woman of prayer, he continued. Every Sunday we would see her here, in the third pew on the right side, with her pearl rosary in her hands. That rosary that belonged to her mother, to her grandmother, to generations of strong and devout women. I felt the weight of the rosary between my fingers. I could move them slightly now. The sedative had almost completely worn off. Patricia knew pain, Father James said. She lost her husband young. She raised her daughter alone. She worked tirelessly, but she never lost faith. She never lost hope. And she never ever lost love. His words were beautiful, but they sounded like an epitaph for a life that was still beating inside this casket. The Mass continued, hymns, prayers, communion, and then came the moment that Dr. Miller had warned me would be the most difficult, the final farewell. Now, Father James said, we invite family and friends to come forward to say their last goodbye to Patricia. One by one, I heard people approach. Some cried, others prayed, some touched my hand, others left flowers. Mrs. Eleanor, my neighbour of 30 years, sobbed. Thank you for every coffee we shared, Patricia. Thank you for every piece of advice. Rest in peace, my friend. Professor Ramirez, my colleague from school. You were the best teacher I knew. The children will always remember you. Grace, my dear friend, forgive me if I didn't know how to help you when you needed it. I loved you like a sister. See you soon, dear friend. Every farewell was real, every tear, sincere, every word from the heart. And then it was Megan's turn. I felt her steps approach, slow, hesitant. She stopped next to my casket. There was a long silence. Then her voice, low, trembling. Mum, She couldn't continue. She cried, but not like the others cried. She cried with that choked sob of someone carrying guilt. Forgive me, she finally whispered, so low that probably no one else heard her. Forgive me for not being the daughter you deserved. My heart pounded. For a moment, for a brief instant, I thought that maybe everything had been a misunderstanding, that maybe my daughter did love me, that maybe, but then I heard Ryan's voice behind her. Megan, that's enough. Let's go. You need air. Yes, she replied, wiping her tears. You're right. And she walked away. She walked away from my casket. She walked away from her last opportunity to tell me the truth. She walked away, wrapped in her lies and her guilt. Father James gave the final blessing. May the Lord welcome Patricia into his kingdom. Amen. Amen, everyone responded. Now, the father continued, the family has decided there will be a private moment before the closing of the casket. We ask all those present to leave the church. The family will say their goodbye privately. I heard the murmur of people getting up, the footsteps moving away, the church doors opening and closing, the echo fading. And then, silence. Only Megan, Ryan, and I remained. I waited. My heart was beating so hard I was afraid they would hear it. My fingers closed tighter around the pearl rosary. Is everyone gone? Megan asked. Yes, Ryan replied. We can talk now. Footsteps approached. They stood right next to my casket. I can't believe it finally happened, Megan said. Her voice no longer trembled. It sounded relieved. I know, Ryan replied. I thought your mum would live 100 years. Me too. But look, here we are. Here we are, Ryan repeated. And then, with a coldness that chilled my blood, finally free of this old lady. Megan didn't respond immediately, but she didn't contradict him either. Now everything is ours, Ryan continued. The house, the money, everything. We can start the life we always wanted. Yes, Megan murmured. Everything is ours. Those were the exact words Dr. Miller had told me I would hear if my suspicions were true, the words that confirmed everything. My daughter didn't love me. My daughter had been waiting for my death. My daughter saw me as an obstacle, not as a mother. I felt a burning rage rising from my stomach to my throat, a righteous, necessary fury. But I also felt something else, something deeper and more powerful. I felt clarity. Dr. Miller had prepared me for this moment. When you hear what you need to hear, he told me, when you have the confirmation, then you can act. But remember, Patricia, what you do in that moment will define everything. You can stay silent and let them think they won, or you can get up and show them who you really are. I opened my eyes. Slowly, as if waking from a deep sleep, I opened my eyes and looked at the ceiling of St. Michael's Church, the wooden beams, the crucifix, the candles. They hadn't noticed yet. I took a deep breath. My lungs filled with fresh, clean air. Then, with slow but deliberate movements, I sat up in the casket. The white satin crinkled under my weight. The pearl rosary jingled between my hands. I turned my head to the left, and there they were, Megan and Ryan, standing next to my casket, their eyes wide and their mouths open in an expression of absolute horror. "Hello, dear," I said in a calm voice. "I think we need to talk." Megan's scream echoed throughout the church, a sharp, primal scream of pure terror. Ryan stumbled backward and fell over the pews, his face white as paper. And I, Patricia Green, 65 years old, sat up completely in my own casket and looked at them with the dignity of a woman who had just resurrected to reclaim her life. Megan's screams bounced off the stone walls of the church like caged birds looking for a way out. She backed away from the casket with her hands over her mouth, tripping over her own feet until she hit a column. Ryan was on the floor between the pews, staring at me with bulging eyes. His face had gone from white to pale green. I think for a moment he thought he was really seeing a ghost. I remained seated in the casket, my navy blue dress perfectly settled, the pearl rosary hanging from my right hand, and a calm that even I didn't know I possessed. "Megan," I said in a firm voice, "stop screaming. I am not a ghost. I am alive." She shook her head violently, as if trying to wake up from a nightmare. "No, no, this is not happening. This can't be happening." "But it is happening," I replied, "and I think you know why." Ryan got up from the floor, holding onto the pew. His hands were shaking. "Mrs. Green, you were dead. Dr. Miller signed the death certificate. We saw you, we touched you." "Sedatives," I said simply. "Dr. Miller has been my friend for 20 years. He helped me fake my death." "Fake?" Megan's voice broke between terror and confusion. "Why? Why would you do something like that?" I took my time to answer. I swung my legs over the edge of the casket and slowly, carefully got down. My knees creaked a little after so many motionless hours, but I remained firm. I stood in front of them, just 10 feet away. "Why?" I repeated her question. "Because 3 months ago I overheard a phone conversation in my backyard, your conversation with Ryan, Megan, where you said that I could live another 20 years and that you couldn't wait that long." Megan turned even paler. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "Why?" I continued. "Because during these last months I saw you change. I saw you looking at my house as if it were yours. I saw you taking photos. I saw you inventing stories about me being controlling and difficult. When you know, Megan, you know that's a lie." "Mum, I am not finished." My voice rose slightly, filling the empty space of the church, because I needed to know if my suspicions were true or if it was just my imagination. I needed to know if my only daughter, the child I carried in my arms, whom I raised alone after her father died, the child to whom I gave absolutely everything, I needed to know if she really wished for my death. Tears began to run down Megan's cheeks, but she didn't say anything. "And now I know," I said, holding the rosary tighter, "because I have been conscious for the last 3 hours. I heard every word, every conversation, every lie." Ryan tried to speak. "Mrs. Green, it's not what it looks like." "It's not what it looks like," I interrupted him. "I heard Denise and Megan talking about how much my house is worth. $8 million, right? I heard how you already hired an appraiser for my furniture, Megan. I heard your plans to sell my house in a month, to buy a new condo in Manhattan, to close this chapter quickly." Megan sobbed. "Mom, please." But the worst part, my voice trembled for the first time. The worst part wasn't hearing your plans. The worst part was hearing your relief, hearing how free you felt, hearing your husband say— I paused, taking a deep breath. Hearing your husband say, "Finally free of this old lady." And you didn't say anything. Nothing, Megan. You didn't contradict him. You didn't defend me. You just said, "Now everything is ours." The silence that followed was deafening. Only Megan's muffled crying and Ryan's agitated breathing could be heard. I walked slowly towards the altar. I turned and faced them from there. The figure of the crucified Christ was behind me, a silent witness to this confrontation. 37 years, I said. 37 years I worked as a teacher to give you everything. When your father died, you were 8 years old. I was 28. I was young. I could have remarried. I had opportunities. Mr. Wilson, the school principal, proposed to me twice. But I didn't do it. Do you know why? Because I didn't want any man to make you feel like you weren't the priority. Because you were my priority. Always. Megan had slumped onto a pew, crying with her hands covering her face. "I worked double shifts tutoring to pay for the private college you wanted. I sold my mother's jewelry, except for this rosary, to pay for your 15-year-old birthday party. I went without vacations for 10 years to save every dollar you needed." I walked towards her slowly. "And I never, ever asked you for anything in return. I never asked you to take care of me. I never asked you to live with me. I never asked you for money. I only wanted your love, Megan. I only wanted you to visit me once in a while, to have coffee with me, to call me and tell me about your day. That was all." I stopped in front of her. "But you couldn't even bring yourself to give me that." Megan looked up. Her eyes were red, swollen. "Mum, forgive me. Please forgive me. I don't know what happened to me. Ryan and I were stressed about money, about the debts, and he started saying things, and what about you?" I asked. "And did you just forget who I was? Did you forget everything I did for you?" "No, Mum. I didn't forget anything. It's just that Ryan was right about some things. You lived alone in that huge house while we were cramped in a small apartment, and you had money saved while we had debts. And I thought that when you were gone, we could what?" My voice hardened. "You could finally live the life you wanted? You could travel? Buy things? Be happy?" She nodded weakly, ashamed. "And did it never occur to you to simply ask me for help?" I asked. "Did you never think of coming to me and saying, 'Mum, we have money problems. Could you lend us something?' I would have helped you, Megan. I would have given you what you needed, but you didn't ask me." Because what you wanted wasn't help. What you wanted was everything, and you wanted it in my death. Ryan finally found his voice. He had approached Megan and was standing next to her, his hand on her shoulder. Mrs. Green, I understand you're angry. You have every right. But Megan is your daughter. She is your only family. You can't just— I can't what? I cut him off. I can't defend myself. I can't claim what is mine. I can't demand respect. It's not that, he stammered. It's just that families fight. Families say things in moments of stress, but in the end they always forgive each other. Always. Oh, really? I looked him directly in the eyes. And would you forgive me, Ryan, if I faked my death, only to discover that you were celebrating it? He didn't answer. That's what I thought, I said. I turned back to Megan. Get up. She looked at me confused, tears still running down her face. What? Get up, I repeated firmly. Look me in the eyes. Megan slowly got up. We stood face to face, mother and daughter, separated by 37 years of love and 3 months of betrayal. Tell me the truth, I said to her, and only the truth, without excuses, without blaming Ryan or stress or money. Just you and me. Do you love me? The question hung in the air like the incense that still floated in the church. Megan opened her mouth. She closed it. She opened it again. Her eyes darted from side to side, searching for an answer she couldn't find. I. It's a simple question, Megan. Do you love me? Or were you just tolerating me, waiting for me to die? I love you, she finally cried out. You're my mum. Of course I love you. Then why? My voice broke for the first time. Why did you say that everything was finally yours? Why didn't you contradict Ryan when he called me an old lady? Why, Megan? Why? She burst into tears again, a deep, visceral cry that came from the depths of her soul. Because I am weak, she sobbed. Because Ryan convinced me that you were an obstacle. Because I let myself be manipulated. Because I am a bad daughter. Because I am not like you. Those last words hit me in the chest. What do you mean you're not like me? You are strong, she said through tears. You are good. You know how to sacrifice. I don't. I am selfish. I want things. I get tired of waiting. I didn't inherit anything from you except your face, Mom. Inside I am different, and I hate myself for it. For a moment, just for a moment, I felt pity for her. I saw the confused child who didn't know how to be a woman. I saw the insecure young woman who married the wrong man. I saw the daughter who never learned to love unconditionally, because she never had to, because I always loved her unconditionally. And maybe, just maybe, that was my mistake. Megan, I said softly, it's not about being like me. It's about being honest, being loyal, remembering where you come from. I know, Mum. I know, and I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I looked at my daughter crying in front of me. I looked at Ryan with his calculated look of guilt. I looked at the pearl rosary in my hand, the same one that 4 generations of women had held in moments of pain and decision, and I knew what I had to do. I forgive you, I said. Megan looked up, surprised. What? I forgive you, I repeated, because that is what a mother does, because that is what a woman of faith does. I forgive you. Megan tried to hug me. Mum, thank you, I promise I will. I raised my hand, stopping her. But forgiving does not mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean allowing. Confusion returned to her face. I am going to change my will, I said clearly. This house that you want so badly will not be yours when I die. I am going to donate it to a foundation that helps widowed teachers and single mothers, women like me who fought alone. Mom, no! Megan's cry echoed in the church. The money in my accounts, I continued unflustered. It will be donated to Lincoln Elementary School where I worked, for scholarships, for children who need opportunities, as I needed to give them to you. You can't do that. This time it was Ryan who shouted. That is her inheritance. It is her right. No, I corrected him firmly. An inheritance is a gift, not a right, and one only gives a gift to those who appreciate the gift. But Mom, Megan clung to my arm, we are family. I am your daughter. I looked at her. I really looked at her, and I saw a woman who was only just now understanding what she had lost. You are my daughter, I agreed, and that is why I am going to leave you something. Her eyes lit up with hope. I am going to leave you your grandmother's pearl rosary. The silence was absolute. What? She whispered. I raised the rosary between us. This rosary has passed through 4 generations of strong women, women who loved unconditionally, women who sacrificed, women who never measured their love in dollars and cents. I placed the rosary in her trembling hands. I want you to have it, I said. I want that every time you see it, you remember this night. I want you to remember that your mother loved you so much that she faked her own death to teach you a lesson. And I want that when you are old, when your body is tired and your time is running out, you remember that true love doesn't wait for death. True love lives every day. Megan looked at the rosary in her hands as if it burned. Mum, please don't do this. We can fix this. I can change. I will change. I know, I said. And I hope you do. But not for the inheritance, not for the money, but because it is the right thing to do. I turned toward Ryan. And you put poison in my daughter's head. You convinced her that I was an obstacle. You alienated her from me. He began, but I interrupted him. Don't give me excuses. I don't want to hear them. I just want you to know one thing. You failed. You thought you would gain a house and money, but you lost something much more valuable. You lost my respect, and you lost the opportunity to know a woman who would have loved you like a son if you had allowed me to. His eyes filled with tears. I don't know if they were tears of regret or frustration over the lost fortune. I walked away from both of them, moving slowly toward the side door of the church. My body was still weak from the sedative, but my spirit had never been stronger. Where are you going? Megan asked in a broken voice. To live, I replied without turning around. To live the rest of my days with a clear conscience and my dignity intact. But Mum, you can't just leave us like this. I stopped. I turned my head slightly, without looking at them completely. Like this how, Megan? Alive? With an opportunity to redeem yourselves? That is more than you wanted to give to me. And I kept walking. I left the church through the side door that led to the small garden, where the hydrangeas were growing. The cold November air hit my face. The bells were still ringing above, slow, grave. Dr. Miller was waiting for me there, as we had planned. He saw me come out and rushed toward me. Patricia, are you okay? I'm fine, Rob. I nodded. Better than fine. And them? They're inside, processing, crying, understanding. What are you going to do now? I looked at the night sky. The stars were beginning to appear through the clouds. I'm going home. I'm going to sleep in my bed. I'm going to wake up tomorrow, and I'm going to live every day I have left as a free woman. And Megan? Megan has a decision to make, I said. Can she continue to be the woman she was these last few weeks? Or can she become the woman I know she can be? But that decision is hers. I already made mine. Rob offered me his arm. I'll take you home. Thank you. As we walked toward his car, I heard a cry from the church. It was Megan calling my name. Mom! Mom! Wait! I didn't stop. I kept walking. Because sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. It is allowing consequences to teach what words could not. It is maintaining your dignity when everything pushes you to give in. I got into Dr. Miller's car. He started the engine. Are you sure about this, Patricia? I looked back. Megan had come out of the church and was running toward us with Ryan behind her, but it was too late. Completely sure, I replied, and we drove away, leaving behind the church, the empty casket, and the daughter who had chosen money over love. But not all was lost, because the pearl rosary was now in her hands. And that rosary, as my mother told me, remembered. It remembered love. It remembered sacrifice. It remembered who we were. And maybe, just maybe, it would also remind Megan who she could be. I still wonder if I did the right thing. And you? What would you have done in my place? That night I slept in my own bed for the first time in 24 hours. I slept soundly. No nightmares, no guilt. I slept like a woman who had reclaimed her life. When I woke up, the Saturday sun was coming through my window with that golden November light that I always liked. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I got up slowly, still feeling the effects of the sedative in my muscles, but with a clearer mind than ever. I went to the kitchen and prepared drip coffee, as I had done thousands of mornings in this house. The aroma of cinnamon filled the space. I poured myself a cup and sat at the table, where I had shared breakfast with Megan so many times when she was a child. But this time, I didn't feel nostalgia. I felt peace. The phone started ringing at 9 o'clock. It was Megan. I let it ring. It rang again at 9:30. I let it. At 10 o'clock. At 10:30. At 11 o'clock. 32 calls that day. I didn't answer any of them. On Sunday morning, while watering my plants in the backyard, I heard the doorbell ring. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Megan, alone, with swollen eyes and messy hair. She had the pearl rosary in her hands. Mom, please, I know you're there. Please open up. I need to talk to you. I stayed on the other side of the door, in silence, listening to her. Mum, I haven't slept in 2 days. I can't eat. I can't think about anything but what happened. Please, just give me a chance to explain. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, and I didn't open the door. Mum, her voice broke. I love you. I mean it. I know I didn't show it. I know I failed you, but I love you. You are my mum. I put my hand on the door, on the other side of where she was. I felt her sobs through the wood, but I didn't open. Okay, she finally said, after almost half an hour. I understand. I understand that you need time. But Mum, don't abandon me. Please don't be like me. Don't leave me the way I was willing to leave you. I heard her footsteps moving away, a car engine starting, the silence returning, and I slid slowly down the door until I was sitting on the floor of my entrance, tears silently running down my cheeks. Because forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and protecting yourself doesn't mean stopping loving. On Monday morning, I went to the office of Attorney Stevens, my trusted lawyer. I carried all the documentation for my properties, bank accounts, and investments. Mrs. Green, he greeted me, surprised. But yes, I received a notification yesterday that you had passed away. I was about to call your daughter about false rumors. I interrupted him with a smile. I am very much alive, and I have come to change my will. I told him everything, every detail. When I finished, Attorney Stevens leaned back in his chair, stunned. "That is extraordinary, Pierre," he finally said. "And very painful, too. I'm sorry, Mrs. Green." "Don't be sorry," I replied. "Now I know the truth. And the truth, although it hurts, is better than a lie. Are you completely sure about what you want to do?" "Completely." Over the next 3 hours, we drafted the new will. The house would go to the Foundation for Widowed Teachers of America. My savings would be divided into student scholarships for Lincoln Elementary School, where I worked for 37 years. The investment bonds would go to a fund to help single mothers go to college. Everything I had built with my honest work would go back to help women who, like me, needed it. "And for your daughter?" the attorney asked. "Will you not leave anything?" "I left her grandmother's pearl rosary," I replied. "It is the most valuable thing I own. It is worth more than the whole house, but she will only understand that when it is too late." "And if she changes? What if she redeems herself?" "If she redeems herself," I said slowly, "she will do it because it is the right thing to do, not because she expects an inheritance. And if she does, then she won't need my money. She will need my forgiveness. And that forgiveness, I can give her that." The attorney nodded. "You are a very wise woman, Mrs. Green." "I am not wise," I corrected him. "I'm just tired of being naive." We signed the papers. Everything was legally registered. I felt lighter when I left that office, as if I had put down a weight I didn't know I was carrying. That same afternoon, I went to the bank. I withdrew $20,000 in cash. Then I went to the Charleston Farmers Market, the one where I used to go with Megan on Sundays when she was a child. I bought fresh flowers, red roses, white calla lilies, yellow daisies. I bought sweet rolls at Mr. Frank's bakery. I bought Monterey Jack cheese, dark chocolate, everything I liked and hadn't bought in months. I walked through the market with my bags, breathing in the smells, listening to the vendors' shouts, feeling the life pulsating around me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt young. Not young in my physical youth, but young in spirit, free, reborn. When I arrived home, I arranged the flowers in vases throughout the house. I prepared meatloaf and mashed potatoes for myself alone. I put on some Ella Fitzgerald music on the old record player that Edward gave me 40 years ago. And I danced. I danced alone in my living room, in my simple dress, with my bare feet on the wooden floor, tears and laughter mixing on my face. I danced because I was alive. I danced because I had reclaimed my life. I danced because, for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to give me permission to be happy. The days turned into weeks. Megan called every day. She left messages on my answering machine, messages that I listened to, but didn't respond to. "Mum, it's me. Again. I just want you to know that I think of you every day, that I'm sorry, that I would do anything to go back in time. Mum, I sold the ring Ryan gave me for my birthday. I donated the money to the school where you worked. I know it's not enough, but it's a start. Mum, Ryan and I are in therapy. We're trying to understand what happened to us, how we got to this point. I know you don't care, but I wanted you to know. Mum, I drove by your house today. I saw your plants in the backyard. They look beautiful. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself." Every message broke my heart a little, but it also strengthened me in my decision. Because a mother's love doesn't mean being convenient. It means being firm. It means teaching, even when it hurts. A month after the funeral, Mrs. Eleanor, my neighbor, knocked on my door with a tray of meatloaf and mashed potatoes. "Patricia," she told me with shining eyes, "I can't believe you're alive. When I saw your obituary in the newspaper, I cried for 3 days. And now it's a miracle. It's not a miracle, I said as I invited her in. It's a lesson. I told her the whole story while we had coffee. When I finished, Mrs. Eleanor took my hands. You are the bravest woman I know, she said, and the most dignified. Your daughter, oh, your daughter doesn't know the treasure she has in you. Maybe someday she will know, I replied. Or maybe not, but that is no longer my responsibility. And how do you feel? She asked me. In your heart, I mean. I thought about it for a moment. I feel at peace, I finally said. Sad, yes. Disappointed, too. But at peace, because I did the right thing, and time will take care of the rest. Mrs. Eleanor nodded wisely. Time always takes care of things, my dear. Always. I started doing things I had stopped doing for years. I went back to the parish, not just for Mass, but to help with community activities. I organized a reading group for older women. I started giving free Spanish lessons to children in the neighborhood who were struggling. My life, which for so long had revolved around my daughter, began to revolve around myself. And I discovered that it wasn't selfishness, it was survival. Father James invited me to give a talk at the parish about forgiveness. I told him I didn't feel qualified. Patricia, he said to me with that paternal smile that characterized him, you faked your death and resurrected to teach your daughter a lesson. If that doesn't qualify you to talk about forgiveness, I don't know what does. I laughed for the first time in weeks. When you put it that way. I gave the talk one Sunday afternoon. There were about 50 people in the parish hall. I told them my story. Not all the details, but the essentials. I talked to them about how sometimes we love so much that we forget to love ourselves. About how sacrifice is noble, but martyrdom is not. About how forgiving doesn't mean allowing. When I finished, an older woman approached me with tears in her eyes. Thank you, she told me. My daughter treats me like a burden. I always think it's my fault, that I did something wrong. But after hearing you, I think I need to do what you did. I need to reclaim my dignity. I hugged her. You don't need to fake your death, I told her softly. You just need to live your life as if it matters, because it does. 2 months after the funeral, while buying vegetables at the market, I ran into Grace, my dear friend. Patricia! She almost screamed when she saw me. She ran toward me and hugged me so hard she almost knocked me over. You're alive. You're alive. But I went to your funeral. I saw you in the casket. I know, I said when we separated. You were also there when I resurrected. What? No, I left earlier. I left after saying goodbye because I couldn't stand it. You left just before, I interrupted her with a smile. 5 minutes before. I told her everything as we walked through the market. Grace alternated between incredulous laughter and tears of solidarity. Oh, my friend, she finally said. What courage. What tremendous courage. Oh, what tremendous madness, I replied. No, she corrected me firmly. Courage, because you dared to see the truth. And more importantly, you dared to act on it. Do you think I was too hard on Megan? Grace stopped. She looked me squarely in the eyes. I think you were fair. I think you gave her exactly what she needed. Consequences. And I think that if Megan is half the woman I think she can be, she will learn. And if she doesn't learn, then… Grace squeezed my hand. Then her loss will be greater than yours, because you will continue to be a woman of integrity. And she will live with the weight of having lost the best mother she could have had. Christmas arrived, the first Christmas I would spend completely alone in 65 years of life. I decorated my house anyway. I put up the tree, hung the lighties, made hot apple cider. I invited Mrs. Eleanor, Grace, Father James, and some retired teachers from my school. We celebrated, we ate, we laughed, we sang carols. And when midnight came and everyone had left, I sat in front of the tree with a cup of hot cider and watched the lights twinkle. There were no presents under the tree. There were no stockings hanging from the fireplace, waiting for Megan and her grandchildren who would never arrive. But there was peace. There was dignity. There was the satisfaction of knowing that I had not betrayed my values for convenience or for fear of loneliness. The phone rang. It was midnight. I knew who it was without looking. This time, I answered. "Hello?" "Mum?" Megan's voice immediately broke. "Mum, you answered. Thank you, thank you." I didn't say anything. I just waited. I just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas and tell you that I love you and that I'm sorry, and that if someday you forgive me. "I already forgave you, Megan," I interrupted her softly. Silence on the other side. "What?" she whispered. "I already forgave you, the day I left the church. But forgiving doesn't mean that things go back to how they were." I know, and I accept that. Can I see you? Someday? When you're ready?" "Someday," I replied. "When we are both ready." Okay. Thank you, Mum. Thanks for answering. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, dear." I hung up the phone, and for the first time since that night in the church, I cried freely. I cried for what I lost. I cried for what I saved. I cried for the mother I was and the woman I was learning to be again. Months passed. January, February, March. I continued with my life. My Spanish classes, my flowers, my coffees with neighbors, my Sunday masses, and little by little I began to hear things. The woman at the market mentioned that she saw Ryan arguing with Megan at a restaurant. Attorney Stevens called me to say that Ryan had lost his job. Grace told me that she saw Megan at church, alone, crying during Mass. I didn't ask. I didn't search for information. I didn't call. I simply lived my life. And I let life do its job. Because real justice doesn't come from us. It comes from time. It comes from the natural consequences of our actions. And I knew, with the certainty of a woman who had seen death and chosen life, that karma, sooner or later, always comes. One afternoon in April, while having coffee in my backyard, the pearl rosary I had given Megan came to my mind. I wondered if she had kept it, if she had sold it, if she looked at it from time to time and remembered. I wondered if it weighed as heavily in her hands as it had weighed in mine when I decided to give it to her. I smiled, because it was no longer my responsibility. I raised my coffee cup toward the blue April sky. "To truth," I said aloud, "to dignity, and to all the women who have the courage to get up out of their own casket." The wind blew gently, rustling the flowers in my garden, and I knew that I had chosen well. 6 months after my resurrection, on a June afternoon, I was at the supermarket buying tomatoes when I saw her. Megan. She was at the end of the aisle, with an almost empty cart, looking at the prices of canned tuna, with that expression that only people who count every dollar have. Her clothes, which had always been impeccable, were wrinkled. She had deep dark circles under her eyes, and that sparkle she always had in her eyes, that light of youth and hope, had gone out. Our eyes met. She froze, with a can of tuna in her hand, looking at me as if she were seeing a ghost for the second time. I simply nodded my head, a polite greeting, and kept walking toward the checkout. But the image of her haggard face haunted me for the rest of the day. It was Grace who told me what had happened. She came to my house one afternoon, with that look of someone who brings news she doesn't want to give, but feels she must. "Dear friend," she told me while I poured her coffee, "I need to tell you something. About Megan." "You don't need to," I interrupted her. "What happens in her life is no longer my—" "Ryan left her," she blurted out. The silence fell between us like a stone in a pond. "What?" "He left her 3 weeks ago. He ran off with a younger woman, a co-worker." I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't joy. It was something more complex, more painful. It was the sadness of knowing you were right when you would have preferred to be wrong. "Tell me," I finally said. Grace sighed. "After what happened with you, after the funeral, things got very bad between them. Ryan blamed Megan for losing the inheritance. He told her that if she had been smarter, more discreet, that if she hadn't been so obvious, you would never have found out." "You?" I asked. "Who else knew?" "Denise, Ryan's sister. It turns out it was all his idea from the beginning. He was the one who convinced Megan that you were an obstacle. He was the one who planted all those ideas in her head." I closed my eyes. I had suspected it, but hearing it confirmed hurt anyway. "Continue," I said. "Ryan started being cruel to her. He told her she was a failure, that she had a goose that laid golden eggs and killed it because she was stupid, that because of her they would live poor forever." "And the debts?" "Worse than we thought. Ryan had gambling debts, almost $200,000. That's why they needed your money so desperately. It wasn't just to live better. It was to pay dangerous people." My stomach churned. "Did Megan know?" "She says no, that he hid everything from her, that he only told her they had money problems, but never told her the magnitude." "And now?" "Now Ryan is gone, and left Megan with all the debts. The apartment where they lived was in her name. The creditors are looking for her. She had to sell her jewelry, her furniture, her car." I felt a huge weight on my chest. "Where is she living?" "With a friend, but I don't know for how long." "Dear friend?" Grace looked at me with pleading eyes. "I know she has to learn. I know she made terrible mistakes. But she is your daughter." "I know," I replied simply, "but it is not the time yet." 2 weeks later, Attorney Stevens called me. "Mrs. Green, your daughter came to see me." "For what?" "She wanted to know if there was any way to reverse the change in the will." I explained to her that no, that you have every right to dispose of your assets as you see fit. "How was she?" There was a pause. "Desperate and ashamed. She asked me if I knew of any job. I gave her some contacts." "Did she ask about me?" "Yes. I told her you were fine, that you were living your life." She cried a lot, Mrs. Green. She cried and apologized for trying to manipulate me. I hung up the phone and sat in the living room, looking at the photograph of Megan at 7 years old, the child with pigtails hugging me in the garden. At what moment did that child turn into a woman capable of wishing for my death? And at what moment would that woman become again? If not that child, at least someone with dignity. A month later, I saw her again. This time it wasn't a coincidence. I was at Sunday Mass, in my usual pew, the third one on the right side. When I looked up during communion, I saw her come in. She was at the back of the church, as if she didn't dare to get closer. She was holding the pearl rosary in her hands. Father James saw her too. During the sermon, he spoke about the prodigal son, about how the father ran to receive the son who had squandered his inheritance, about forgiveness and redemption. I knew he was doing it for her, and maybe for me too. When Mass ended, Megan approached slowly. I remained seated, letting her come to me. "Mum," her voice was barely a whisper, "can I sit down?" I nodded. She sat next to me, leaving a prudent space between us. She was holding the rosary so tightly that her knuckles were white. "I don't know how to start," she finally said. "Start with the truth," I replied without looking at her. "The truth is that I ruined my life, and the truth is that it was my fault, not Ryan's. Mine, because I chose to listen to him. I chose to believe that you were the problem. I chose money over you." I turned to look at her. Tears were running down her cheeks, but she didn't try to hide them. "The truth is that Ryan left me. He left me with debts I didn't know existed. He left me alone, without money, without a house, without anything. And the truth is that I deserve it." "No one deserves to be deceived," I said softly. "But I deceived first. I deceived you. I pretended to love you when in reality I was just waiting, waiting for you to die." I finished for her. She nodded, sobbing. "God forgave me, Mum. Father James says God forgives everything, but I can't forgive myself. Every day I wake up and remember what I did, what I thought, what I said, and I hate myself." I looked at my daughter crying next to me in the church where she was baptized, where she had her first communion, where she celebrated her confirmation. I saw all those moments superimposed on this broken woman next to me. "Megan," I finally said, "why are you here?" "Because I need you to know that I'm sorry. I need you to know that I have changed. I need—" her voice broke. "I need you to see me." "I see you," I replied. "I have seen you this whole time. I saw you at the supermarket counting dollars to buy tuna. I saw you come into this church today with your grandmother's rosary. I see you, Megan, and I see that you are suffering." "And are you glad?" she asked in a broken voice. "Are you glad to see me like this?" "No," I replied firmly. "I would never be glad to see you suffer. You are my daughter, but I am not going to rescue you either." "I don't want you to rescue me," she said quickly. I just want you to know that every day I pray with this rosary, and every day I ask the Virgin to help me be the woman you raised, not the woman I became." I extended my hand and touched the rosary she was holding. The same pearls my mother held, that my grandmother held, now my daughter held with trembling hands. "This rosary," I said softly, "has seen 4 generations of women face their own battles. Some won them, others lost them, but all kept going. Do you think I can keep going? I think you already are. You came to church, you're praying, you're working, you're facing your debts." "I got a job at a coffee shop," she said, "waiting tables. It's not much, but it's honest." Something inside me stirred. My daughter, who went to private college, who had never worked in service, was now waiting tables. "And how do you feel?" "Tired," she admitted. "Sore. Humiliated when I see people from my college coming in and I serve them coffee. But also, I feel clean, as if every table I wipe cleans a little of the guilt." We remained in silence for a long moment. Father James was putting out the candles. Some people were leaving. The church was emptying. "Mom," Megan finally said, "I'm not asking you to forgive me now. I'm not asking for things to go back to how they were. I'm just asking that someday, when you have fully healed, you give me the opportunity to show you that I have changed. And if that day never comes," she closed her eyes and more tears fell, "then I will live with that, because it is fair." I got up slowly. Megan got up too. "Keep praying with that rosary," I told her, "and keep working honestly. Not for me, for you. Because the woman you want to be doesn't need my approval. She needs your commitment. Yes, Mum. I turned to leave. Mum, she called me. One more thing. I stopped. A few weeks ago, I went to the hospital to donate blood. They urgently needed O negative for a little girl. And while I was there, I saw Ryan. My heart raced. What was he doing there? He was alone, in the waiting room, crying. I hid, but I watched him. He was waiting for test results. He looked sick, Mum. And so alone. I felt a pang of something. It wasn't satisfaction. It was pity. The nurse nearby said he had been going for weeks, that he was very sick and that his family had abandoned him, that the woman he ran off with left him when she found out about his illness. Life always collects its debts, I thought. And how did you feel seeing him? I asked. Megan thought for a moment. I felt pity, and I also felt that life is fairer than we think. Ryan taught me to see people as objects, to measure love in money, and now he is learning what it is like to be the discarded object. I nodded slowly. Life is the best teacher, and its lessons are tough but necessary. That night, at home, I sat in my living room with a cup of chamomile tea. I thought about Megan counting dollars to buy tuna, about Ryan, alone in a hospital, about the apartment Megan had to leave, about the sold jewelry, about the lost furniture. I thought about how 6 months ago, in that same church, they had been standing next to my casket saying, "Finally free of this old lady." And now everything is ours. And now Megan was waiting tables in a coffee shop, and Ryan was sick and alone. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel victory. I felt something deeper and sadder. I felt the confirmation of something my mother told me many years ago. Patricia, life always balances itself. You don't need revenge. You just need to wait. Ryan once saw me as an obstacle. Years later, well, months later, he was the one who was sick and abandoned, learning what it is like to be discarded. Megan once wished for me to die to inherit my house. Now she didn't even have an apartment to live in. Life always collects its debts. But what surprised me was realizing that I didn't need them to pay. Not anymore, because their suffering didn't alleviate mine. Their loss didn't restore what I had lost. The only thing that gave me peace was knowing that I had acted with dignity, that I had not stooped to vengeance, that I had maintained my integrity even when it would have been easier to simply give in. The phone rang. It was late, almost 11 o'clock at night. Hello? Mum, it's me. Megan's voice sounded strange, scared. What's wrong? I'm at the hospital. It's nothing serious. I just passed out at work from exhaustion. But I don't have anyone to come pick me up. The doctors say I need someone to take me home and look after me for 24 hours. My heart was torn between two instincts. The mother's instinct that wants to rush to help, and the woman's instinct that knows she must maintain boundaries. Did you call a friend? They're all busy, or they don't talk to me anymore after they found out what I did to you. So she had lost her friends too. The price of social judgment was another one she was paying. What hospital? The general hospital. But Mum, if you can't come, I'll be there in half an hour, I said. Because even though Megan needed to learn, even though she needed to face the consequences, I wasn't Ryan. I wasn't the friends who abandoned her. I was her mother. And mothers don't abandon. Mothers set boundaries, yes, but they don't abandon. When I arrived at the hospital, Megan was sitting in a wheelchair in the waiting room, wearing a hospital gown and looking completely exhausted. When she saw me, she started to cry. It's okay, I told her. I'm here. I took her to Grace's house. who had agreed to let her stay that night so I could look after her. Was I not ready to take her to my house? Not yet. I prepared her chicken noodle soup. I gave her her medicine. I tucked her into Grace's sofa. "Mom," she whispered before falling asleep. "Thank you. I didn't deserve for you to come." "It's not about deserving," I replied. "It's about what is right." I stayed awake all night, watching her sleep, and I thought about the irony of it all. 6 months ago, she was waiting for my death. Now I was taking care of her in her most vulnerable moment. Life takes strange turns, but it always, always balances itself. They once wished for my death. Months later, I saw that same emptiness in their eyes as they faced the consequences of their own choices. Life always collects its debts. 14 months have passed since that night in the church when I opened my eyes inside my own casket. 14 months that feel like an entire life, as if I died in that casket, and the woman who emerged was someone different, someone wiser, someone freer. Today is Sunday. Early in the morning, like every Sunday for 40 years. I got up, put on my simple dress, and prepared to go to Mass. But before going out, I did something that has become a ritual. I sat in my living room with a cup of drip coffee and looked at the photographs that adorn my walls. There is Megan as a baby, with those enormous eyes and those toothless smiles. There is Megan at her first communion, with her white dress and her prayer book. There is Megan at her graduation, hugging me with tears of happiness. And there, in a new photograph I added 3 months ago, is Megan at 34 years old, with her hair tied back, without makeup, in the uniform of the coffee shop where she works, smiling with a different smile. A smile that is no longer one of naive hope, but of earned dignity. Things changed slowly after that night at the hospital. There was no dramatic moment of reconciliation. There were no cinematic hugs or eternal promises. There was something more real and more difficult. There was work. Megan continued working at the coffee shop. She continued paying her debts, little by little. She continued living with her friend in a small apartment. And she continued coming to Mass every Sunday, sitting in the same pew as me, with the pearl rosary in her hands. For the first 3 months, we didn't speak. We simply shared the sacred space of the church. She prayed. I prayed. And between our prayers, there was an invisible bridge that was slowly being rebuilt. One Sunday after Mass, I approached her. "Do you want some coffee?" She looked at me with incredulous eyes. "Seriously?" "Seriously." We went to a coffee shop near the parish. Not the coffee shop where she worked, because we both understood that it needed to be a neutral space. We ordered coffee. We sat down, and we talked. Not about the past. Not about the funeral. Not about Ryan or the debts or the lost houses. We talked about the present, about how the weather was changing, about the flowers in the churchyard, about the new priest who had arrived to help Father James. Small things, simple things, safe things. And those small things, Sunday after Sunday, turned into longer conversations. And the conversations turned into trust. And the trust turned into something similar to what we had before, but different, more real, less naive. 6 months ago, Megan invited me to see the apartment where she lived. It was tiny, a room with a kitchenette and a shared bathroom. But it was clean, tidy. And on the wall, next to her bed, was the photograph of the two of us in the garden when she was 7 years old. "I saved it," she told me. "Of all the things I had to sell, this photograph was the only thing I protected." I looked at the image. 2 women separated by 30 years, the young and strong mother, the happy and trusting child. That day, Megan said softly, I had just fallen off my bicycle. Do you remember? I scraped my knees and cried a lot. You cleaned my wounds. You put band-aids with cartoon characters on me, and then you hugged me and told me something I never forgot. What did I tell you? You told me, my child falls hurt, but the important thing is not to fall. It is to get up with dignity. Her eyes filled with tears. It took me 30 years to understand what you meant. I hugged her. For the first time in 14 months, I hugged my daughter, and we both cried. We cried for the lost time, for the unspoken words, for the self-inflicted wounds, for everything that could have been and wasn't. But we also cried with relief, because although the path had been painful, we had arrived at a new place, a more honest place. 3 months ago, Megan received a promotion at the coffee shop. They made her a supervisor. It wasn't much, but for her it meant everything. Mum, she told me that night over the phone, with an excitement in her voice that I hadn't heard in years. They recognized me, for my work, for my effort, not because I'm someone's daughter or someone's wife, for myself. I'm proud of you, I told her, and I meant it. Because the truth is that I was more proud of the Megan who waited tables with dignity than the Megan who graduated from private college without ever having worked. Because the first Megan was being built by herself, with her own hands, with her own sweat. Yesterday, Saturday afternoon, Megan came to visit me for the first time in 14 months. I invited her in. She entered slowly, looking at everything as if seeing the house for the first time. Or maybe she was truly seeing it for the first time without calculating its value, without taking inventory of its treasures, simply seeing it for what it was, the home where she grew up. It smells like drip coffee, she said with a nostalgic smile. I made your favorite, with lots of cinnamon. We sat in the kitchen, that same table where she colored while I prepared her lunch, that same window where the morning sun came in, that same space where we built 1,000 memories. Mum, she began after a long silence, I've thought a lot about everything that happened, and I need to tell you something. I waited. For a long time I've apologized for what I did to you, for wishing for your death, for planning to take your house, for everything. I nodded, but I never thanked you. I raised my eyebrow, confused. Thank me for loving so much that you were willing to die to save me. Megan, no. Let me finish. She took my hand over the table. Because that's what you did, Mom. You got into that casket. You sedated yourself. You risked yourself. All to show me who I had become. You could have simply walked away. You could have disinherited me and been done with it. But you didn't. You gave me the hardest and most loving lesson anyone could have given me. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. You forced me to look at myself in the mirror, she continued. You forced me to face what I had become. And yes, it was painful. It was devastating. I lost everything. But Mum, I needed to lose it. Because what I had wasn't mine. Not even my soul was mine. It belonged to Ryan. It belonged to money. It belonged to appearances. And now, I asked softly, whose soul is it now? She smiled, with that new smile she had learned in these 14 months. Now it's mine, and I'm learning to take care of it. We stayed in the kitchen until the sun began to set. We talked about many things, about her work, about her plans to eventually study culinary arts, about her therapy sessions, about how she had learned to be alone without feeling lonely. And we also talked about Ryan. I saw him 2 weeks ago, she told me, at the hospital. I'm doing some volunteer work there on weekends, helping to deliver meals to patients without family, and he's very sick, Mum. Cancer. Advanced. And he is completely alone. His family abandoned him. His friends disappeared. The woman he ran off with, obviously, is gone. And how do you feel about it? Megan thought for a moment. Sad. Not for him exactly, but for what it represents. It represents what I could have been if you hadn't taught me this lesson. Someone who at the end of their life has no one because they spent their whole life using people. Did you talk to him? Yes. I brought him food. He recognized me. He looked ashamed. But also, he thanked me. For what? For not treating him the way he treated me. For not abandoning him the way he abandoned me. And you know what was the strangest thing, Mum? In that moment, I understood something. What? I understood that forgiveness is not for the other person. It is for oneself. I forgave Ryan not because he deserved it, but because I deserved to be free of that hatred. I looked at my daughter with astonishment. This wisdom, this depth, wasn't there 14 months ago. She had grown. She had matured. She had learned. Your grandmother told me something very similar, I told her. When I was angry with the driver who killed your dad in that accident. She told me, Patricia, hatred is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Forgive to free yourself. That is exactly it, Megan said. And now I understand why you gave me Grandma's rosary, so I would remember that wisdom, so I would carry it with me every day. She took the rosary out of her jacket pocket. The pearls shone with that special luster that only things that have been loved for generations have. I carry it every day, she told me, and every night I pray with it, and every time I hold it, I remember who I am, where I come from, and who I want to be. This morning, before going to Mass, I spent a moment looking at my reflection in the mirror. I am 66 years old. My hair has more grey. My face has more wrinkles. My hands tremble a little more than before. But my eyes have something they didn't have 14 months ago. They have peace. Because I learned something fundamental in this strange and painful journey. I learned that true love is not sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It is not giving everything until you have nothing. It is not allowing everything to maintain peace. True love includes boundaries. It includes dignity. It includes the courage to say no when necessary. I learned that being a good mother didn't mean being an infinite mother, that I could love my daughter without losing myself, that I could forgive without being naive. I learned that sometimes you have to fake death to learn how to live. At Mass today, Father James spoke about resurrections, not just Christ's, but ours, the small deaths and resurrections we experience every day. Sometimes, he said from the pulpit, looking directly at me, we have to die to a version of ourselves to be born into another. We have to let go of who we were to become what we are destined to be. After Mass, Megan and I walked together through the parish garden. The hydrangeas were in full bloom. Mum, she said suddenly, do you ever regret what you did, faking your death? I thought about it seriously before answering. No, I finally said, because if I hadn't done it, I never would have known the truth. I would have lived the rest of my days with a lie, and you would have lived the rest of your life without facing who you had become. And was it worth it? Was the pain worth it? All pain that teaches us is worth it, I replied, because the pain that doesn't teach us only destroys us, but the pain that transforms us, that saves us. This afternoon, as I write these words in my journal, I think about all the women who are reading my story. I think about the mothers who sacrifice themselves until they disappear. I think about the daughters who take their mothers for granted. I think about the women who have been betrayed by the people they loved the most. I think about the women who have pretended that everything is fine when inside everything is breaking. And I want to tell them something I learned in these 14 months. You have the right to demand respect, even from your own children, even from your own family. You have the right to set boundaries. And those boundaries don't make you bad people. They make you healthy people. You have the right to forgive without forgetting, to love without being naive, to be good without being foolish. And you have the right, the sacred right, to reclaim your dignity when someone tries to take it away from you. Because in the end, the only thing we truly take from this life is not the money, or the houses, or the properties. It is the dignity with which we lived it. It is the love we gave unconditionally, but with wisdom. It is the strength we found in the darkest moments. Megan and I are building something new. It is not what we had before. It is something different, something more real. We see each other once a week. We have coffee. We talk. Sometimes we laugh. Sometimes we cry. And slowly, very slowly, we are healing. Will I change my will? I don't know yet. Maybe someday. Maybe never. But that is not the important question. The important question is Megan changing because she wants to change or because she wants to inherit? And every day, every conversation, every gesture gives me the answer. She is changing because she wants to be better. And that is enough. There is a saying my mother used to say, "Time heals everything, but only if you let it heal." I am letting it heal. I am letting time do its work. I am letting the wounds close naturally, without forcing, without rushing. And I am learning that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means integrating. It means taking the pain and transforming it into wisdom. Last night I dreamed of my mother. We were in her garden, the same garden where she gave me the pearl rosary days before she died. You are doing the right thing, Patricia. You are being strong without being cruel. You are loving without losing yourself. I am proud of you. I woke up crying. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. Because for so long I wondered if I had done the right thing, if I had been too hard on Megan, if I should have simply forgiven and forgotten from the start. But now I know that I did exactly what I needed to do. I gave Megan the hardest and most loving lesson a mother can give. I forced her to face the consequences of her actions. And in doing so, I didn't just save her, I saved myself. If my story helps a single woman open her eyes, it will have been worth it. If a single mother reads this and understands that she can love without disappearing, I will have fulfilled my purpose. If a single daughter reads this and remembers to value her mother before it's too late, then all the pain will have made sense. Because stories like mine are not told for entertainment. They are told to transform. And I have been transformed. I am no longer the Patricia who faked her death 14 months ago. I am the Patricia who resurrected, who reclaimed her life, who set boundaries, who forgave without forgetting, who loved with wisdom. And every day when I get up and see the sun coming through my window, when I smell the drip coffee in my kitchen, when I water the plants in my backyard, when I pray with an invisible rosary in my hands, because the pearl one is Megan's now, and that's okay. When I do all that, I thank life, because I am alive, because I learned, because I grew, and because in the end, after all the pain and all the tears and all the betrayal, I found something I didn't know I had lost. I found myself. A week ago, Megan asked me if she could ever use the pearl rosary at her own wedding, if she ever got married again. Of course, I told her. That rosary is yours now, to use in your important moments, and to give it to your daughter someday, if you have one. And what will I tell her when she asks where it came from? You will tell her the truth, I smiled. You will tell her that it comes from 5 generations of strong women, women who fell and got back up, women who made mistakes and learned from them, women who loved with all their heart, but also with all their wisdom. Megan hugged me. Thank you, Mum, for everything, for the rosary, for the lesson, for not abandoning me even when I was willing to abandon you. Mothers don't abandon, I told her. Mothers teach, sometimes with sweetness, sometimes with harshness, but always, always with love. And so I close this story. A story that began with a betrayal and ended with a transformation. A story that began in a casket and ended with a resurrection. A story that began with tears of pain and ended with tears of healing. My name is Patricia Green. I am 66 years old, and this is the story I needed to tell. Not to judge my daughter, not to punish her, but to show her and to show all of you that there is always a path to redemption, that it is never too late to change, that true love includes boundaries, and that sometimes the best way to save someone is to let them hit rock bottom so they can push themselves upward. Thank you for listening to me until the end. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change an entire day. Every day, a woman, a life lesson. And remember, if you ever feel that you have lost your dignity, that you have allowed too much, that you have disappeared trying to keep the peace, remember that you can get up out of your own casket. Remember that you can resurrect. Remember that it is never, ever too late to reclaim your life. God bless you, and until next time.